Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 1871 podcast. And I'm delighted to say that we're joined again by former Royal striker Simon Church, who's back again after his guest appearance in Series 1. And we'll be talking to Simon about Reading's relegation to League One and what's gone wrong for Reading. And we'll also be talking to Simon about his time at Reading, and we'll catch up with him on what he's up to now. So welcome back to the 1871 podcast, Simon.
Thank you.
Good to have you back. And before we speak to you, Simon, I just want to have a quick word with the 1871 podcast voice of Radio Berkshire. It's Johnny Hunts. And Johnny keeps getting invited on BBC Radio Berkshire to talk about what's going on at Reading. So nice to have a bit of representation for the podcast there. So well done for that, Johnny.
Yeah, where's me check? Where's me money?
Yeah, what was it? It was a £5, wasn't it, I think?
Yeah, for the season.
So I keep forgetting. Remind me. Anyway, Johnny, it's the day after Reading's relegation, and you've almost got a smile on your face, but I think that's more to do with my dad jokes, isn't it?
Well, there is that, and I've managed to get through another first aid course after about the 20th time of doing it. So that's an achievement. It brightens my day.
Numbed the pain a bit.
It has, mate. They couldn't help me with any Reading related things, but at least I can help other people. Yeah,
okay. Well, it's the day after Reading's relegation to League One, and we spoke last night, Johnny, after the final whistle had blown in the Huddersfield game. How are you feeling now?
Look, it's funny. It's actually a relief it's over, because I think the impending doom, it felt like Dad's army. We're all doomed, and you're waiting for it. You're hoping and praying it's not going to happen, but you kind of knew it was going to. It's just horrible, toxic, and sad. Like that's the part of it. It's sad. I'm sure for Simon as an ex-player and fan, all of us as fans, the players that are there, maybe it's just sad. But it's what it is, and there's no point in dwelling on it now. It's done. We have to start trying to make a way out of this mess and look forward, and how we can look forward, and how we can change things, and how we can do better. And I'd love to hear what Simon's got, what he thinks on this, because it needs to change.
Yeah. And we're still in the Championship at the moment. Obviously, we will be playing in League One next season, but we've still got one game to go. We haven't won since Blackpool in February, 3-1 win against Blackpool back in February. What are the chances, Johnny, of Reading ending that run at Huddersfield on Monday, do you think?
We've probably got there and smash them 4-0 just to annoy us all, just to make us go, yeah, well, this is what you could have won, like in bullseye.
I think even that's wishful thinking, isn't it?
It is, mate, but that's me. I'll dream. I don't know. I think the young lad's gone back to Chelsea already, the loanee, so he won't be there. And maybe there's a few others that won't play, won't risk them if they're on loan from other clubs because of injuries and that's fine. Put 11 youngsters out there that want to play. Andy Carroll, I think, come out and apologised and says he's going to work hard over the summer, which is great to hear from an experienced pro, and hopefully he'll stay next season and help us rebuild. And I look forward to seeing him smashing up League One, because that'll be entertaining.
Well, one player that we could do with who scored a few goals for Reading would be Simon Church. Simon, any chance of signing on for one game to get a win?
No, I don't think I could even climb up. I wouldn't want to play in League One anyway.
Fair enough.
All right, look, gonna have a chat with you now, Simon, and as I say, thanks ever so much for joining us. First of all, what do you make of Reading's relegation to League One?
I mean, if we're honest, it's probably been coming, which it's sad to say for a club like Reading, obviously with the history, well, the more recent history that we've had, we've been pushing the top of the Championship as a minimum requirement. But yeah, you just look at the last, I guess, 6-7 years, and you see what's happened behind closed doors. You can see, certainly as an ex-player coming back to the club, you can tell that the club's completely lost its identity. It's lost its kind of direction. It's lost its connection with the fans. It just feels completely different. And the problem is, I guess, when new owners come in, football clubs have to evolve, and that's part of football. So sometimes we hold on to the good times and stuff like that, but you shouldn't lose your identity. You shouldn't lose your connection. You should, it's the club. the club's bigger than the people that come in and bring it. And you certainly feel like, yeah, that's been completely lost.
And what would you single out, if you like, as the main differences with the current setup at Reading compared to your time at the club?
There's a complete lack of togetherness. I feel like, even when I was 14, 15, 16, coming into the stadium, the club, you feel it's a family club. You've got the relationship from the youth team all the way up to the first team. We all have the same goals. You all understand what you're trying to achieve. I just think, looking from the outside and obviously speaking to people at the club and noticing myself, that they've just completely lost that. And, we can blame so many people. We can blame the players. They've got to take the responsibility. They're out on the pitch. But I think at the end of the day, you've got to look at the board and you've got to really say what's happened. Like, they've spent money. You can't deny that they've spent money. But who is making the decisions and who's advising them obviously don't have a clue about football.
Yeah, and moving forward now, we've got some time across the summer to kind of sort things out a little bit. But where do you think Reading need to go from here?
I think they need to really just cut it back and start again. I think it's a complete rebuild. Whatever's working, the people that are making the decisions are making the right decisions. I think that's clear to see from the past couple of years. Again, it's easier said than done. I think if you look at it, you need to get people who know the club. I think they need to have that relationship back with the fans. There's obviously a real disconnect between the players and the board, the players and the fans and the club now. There's just a disconnect all the way through, and I feel like you need to be bringing people in that can assist that, who have the experience in this, because you might have a big budget for League One next year, but that doesn't guarantee you anything. And I think if on previous successes, look at our promotion and the promotion before that, didn't have the biggest budget, but we had a togetherness. And what I've experienced in football is you just need that kind of identity, that togetherness, people buy into it, and that relationship with the fans. I went to the Burnley game. I didn't see the Wigan game, but just having the fans back in makes a huge difference. And yeah, it's difficult. It's going to be a difficult kind of season. What they'll do behind closed doors, I don't know. But I think they should start recruiting, at the board level first. Certainly needs to be looked at.
And John, are you going to bring you in now?
Yeah, so if you were running the club from a playing point of view, if we started there, like you've seen us over the last few years, the team pretty much has been woeful. We've finished lower in the league every season, bar I think the Amsterdam season where we got to the playoffs. But every other time, the last 7 years, we had the one with Palco, we fell apart and ended up 7th. But the rest has been 18th, 19th, 20th, with a big squad of players, experienced players, blah, 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 blah. We can go on and on. How do we need to change the mentality almost of the players? It feels, with that seems not to be there that you had as a team, that closeness and that bond.
Yeah, I think that's so important in football. You need that comes from the management. The management have to be able to, control that. Directors of football, they have to be in control of making the right decisions for the club. Of course, in football, there's a lot of politics and all that kind of stuff going on backhand. You just don't know what's going on. And, I'm fully aware of that. But I think with where Reading are, they just need to get back to basics and go back to something that, that was there with the club when I was at 14 all the way through. And that's why they've had that success. Everyone's buying into it. Yeah, it's going to be difficult, but I think it's going to, even the academy players, I've got to be honest, the academy players, they're just not good enough for pushing where they should be and where the club should be, and that's just being honest and where they're at. They're just not there. I mean, we've had some great players coming through the academy that they've sold on, but again, you know, they haven't made the most of that and they haven't reinvested well. They've spent money. A lot of the players are on massive money. There's good experienced players, but again, if you can't have someone that brings everyone together and buys into it, as a player, you have to buy into what we're doing and believe that you can achieve it. If you don't have that, you're just going to go nowhere.
Yeah, and then like management wise, I mean, you know, Paul Ince, I'd like to be interested to hear what you think of him, but also you know, Noel Hunt's come in very late in the day and done as good a job probably as he could. And I know you play with Noel, and I wouldn't have a bad word to say about him. But do you think he could be the future manager, or do you think we need to look elsewhere, or what kind of fit of manager do you think we need?
It's difficult. I know Paul Ince came in, and I'm not it was a strange one. Like, I'm not going to slate it. He's an amazing career. You know, he's managed football clubs. He probably couldn't believe it after 8 years or whatever it was that he hadn't managed a club, and he just comes in. It's a strange, regardless of whether it's right or wrong. It was such a strange appointment.
Yeah.
And it obviously didn't work. So I think a manager coming in now would have to be able to rebuild and put his stamp on it as like a longer term thing, rather than a quick win. We need to get promoted this season. Well, if you need to get promoted this season, it's not just the manager, it's not just the players, it's how you're going to recruit, how you're going to set that up, how you're going to start, because it's not going to be as easy as bringing in a top class manager and do you know what, we're just going to spend a bit of money, get the right person in, get the players in, and we're going to go up, because that's just not going to work.
Yeah. And like, you know, at that level now, you know, our scouting system, I think, you know, that some of you guys have taught, you know, we haven't had a scouting system for a long time, and we've had the super agent involved and all that kind of stuff. Where do we need to start looking for players? I know, you know, we need hungry players, don't we? Young players, you need a fit, but how easy is that to do? You know, from the teams that you played in, what made that work as a bond between a group? And then what can, you know, I know it's a different era, but how can that be rebuilt to move forward in a positive way?
Yeah, it's difficult because, you know, when I had it at Reading, we had the spine of the team was academy players. They knew the club inside out. They had that relationship, and everyone else who came in bought into everything else that we were a part of.
Yeah. And
we learned that from the previous teams, and the experience of, you know, Steve Coppell, all that kind of stuff led us forward into that. When I went to different clubs, I had experience of having new owners and the players losing complete confidence of the board, having problems with the managers. They keep changing the managers all the time. It takes its effect. And I know as a player, you have to take full responsibility of your performances, but people also need to understand that a player, they play for the team, they have to buy into it. If they don't buy into it, they're going to look after themselves.
Yeah.
And that's just the ruthlessness of football. So when you say about loyalty, because even when I was at Reading, I was there for 14, but there was no loyalty shown to me. I was chucked to the side. They didn't care for political reasons. So it's like, at the end of the day, it's a business. It is, whether we like it or not, it's a business. And, you know, it's a badly run business at the minute.
Simon, I just wanted to ask you, you obviously you had quite a few loan spells. So as well as Reading, you played at Charlton and MK Dons, and you had loans out at Crewe, Yeovil, Wycombe, Leyton Orient, Aberdeen, and dare we mention it, you also had a loan spell at Huddersfield, by the way. And you also played for Scunthorpe and Plymouth. You played in Holland, and of course you represented Wales. So you talk about buying into what a club's doing, what a team is doing, and you mentioned that word loyalty. where did it go really well for you and the team or the teams that you were playing with? Was that at Reading or was it somewhere else, or have you had that at various points in your career?
The only two clubs where I felt like we could achieve something was the team at Reading and with Wales. And the two similarities that we had, again, it wasn't about money. There wasn't any massive players on massive money, egos, like any kind of, it was togetherness, and the group bought into what the manager was saying. That happened with Brian. He created a team. He allowed us to manage ourselves. We had great characters in there. We all fought for each other. We all wanted it because we all believed it. And it's difficult when you haven't got a group pushing for the same way who's in it. People say it. People say, oh, I'm trying my hardest. It's just not. Nah, that's not enough. It's you all have to buy into it. And I found that with Reading, and I certainly found that with Wales. We had that relationship with the manager, we had that relationship with the fans, same as Reading, we had that relationship with the manager, we had that relationship with the fans, and it all comes together. And I didn't have that anywhere else. And I struggled with that. Maybe it was because, you know, I kind of got brought up in that, you know, that mindset of this is what it takes to be successful, watching the players that, you know, I was coming through with, seeing Steve Coppell brought on, going to like that, then with Wales, Gary Speed, how we be successful, to playing in the Euros, understanding what it takes to be successful there. And I think, you know, from a club's point of view, sometimes they think, you know, a change of manager will do the job, or a change of, you know, chuck loads of money at it. But that's not how football works. We're people. You have to understand the people, and the people have to buy into that. You can have all the talent in the world, but if you're not doing things as a unit, it's never going to work.
Yeah, Johnny, going to bring you back in now, if that's okay.
Yeah, just, you're saying about the management, and you said about Gary Speed. These people, Simon, these Brian, what is it they have that makes you believe? You know, because I'm sure anybody could come in as a manager and say, Simon, this is this, and you're going, yeah, all right, mate, whatever. But when somebody comes in like that, what makes you go, yeah, this is?
I think it's just how they are. Like, you've got to be treated, first and foremost, people see us as footballers, not as people and humans. Like, what triggers us, like what is going to get the best out of us, and that's buying into something. You know, you haven't just got 11 players there, you've got a squad. Some of the squad aren't going to buy into it. That's just, you know, that's just the numbers. But the majority, if you're not playing and you think you're going to get a chance, you've got to be able to be managed the right way. So when you get your chance, you're brought in and you're ready, and there's no toxic kind of change room. There's no issues going on, you know, with the board. There's no issues with contracts. There's no issues with, you know, changing the manager every 6 months or 5 months or 3 months. It's not going to work. Yeah. And I think, yeah, when you've got a collective from the top to the bottom and everyone's on the same page, yes, there's going to be disagreements and problems and issues, but if you're all on the same page, pushing towards the same thing, you understand your positions and able to talk, that's all it is. It's not rocket science.
Yeah.
But people in football overcomplicate it. And what baffles me the most is people in football that don't know football are making footballing decisions. That baffles me the most. And they wonder why it doesn't work, because they don't understand what it takes in a changing room. Because at the end of the day, you can have everything perfect outside of that, but in the changing room is where it counts. On the pitch is where it counts. And people lose focus of that, and I don't quite understand it.
And what, you know, when you're, I'm sure you have, when you're playing alongside players that aren't pulling, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but they're not fighting for the cause that you are. How hard is that? I mean, I'm sure you must have seen it in your career. I'm not even necessarily at Reading, but do you know what I mean? Like, as a fellow player, how do you try and deal with that, or is it hard to, or is it a management thing?
Yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult when it's not like players really. As players, we don't. you're going out to be professional. You are professional. This is what we love doing. We're given the opportunity, and everyone's fighting to play on the Saturday or Tuesday and start in 11. So no one's going to go into it and toss it off, really. But it's just, you can't control 11 players, and you need 11 players to buy into everything.
Yeah.
And especially in the Championship, it's hard. It's Saturday, Tuesdays, it's difficult. You're playing against, but that's where you need the squad, and you need everyone to buy into it. And if you're not pulling your weight, have characters that will pull you up on it, and you're doing it in the right way, where it's not just ego against ego against ego. Because unfortunately, especially now, we've kind of moved away from that old school. Let's have it out. Let's stand up and have it out. Now we just sit back and we're just on our phones, and no one really cares. And you go on Twitter or whatever and you say, "Oh, there's always the next game." It's a load of bollocks, and we all know it.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we've kind of lost that old school mentality of let's just fight. Let's fight. If he's not pulling his weight, call him out.
Yeah.
Simon, I wanted to ask you about your experience of retiring as a player. What that's been like for you, and that experience, and how it's affected you, and how you've dealt with that, really.
Yeah, it was difficult. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't expecting to retire. I didn't think I would. I knew I had an issue with my hip, but I never thought I'd have to retire from it. And I guess it's when after Reading I kept moving, I just couldn't settle. I couldn't get into the same kind of rhythm. Injuries, breaking down, all this kind of stuff. And then when you retire, it's everything you kind of work from. I was playing for Wycombe at, what was I, 8 years old. So I was in a professional kind of system from 8 years old all the way up to 28. And it's all I ever known, all I ever wanted to do, and then it kind of gets taken away. And you always look back and reflect and say, I probably could have done more, should have done this, I regret doing this, I regret, and then you kind of let it go. But you take it for granted when you're in those situations, that even when I was at, Charlton and things like that, when I'm getting told to train by myself, and you think the world's, even at Reading, I was training by myself at Reading, you think the world's, it could be a lot worse, and you should actually just accept that this is part of football. But it's difficult. It's difficult when you come out of it, because you're not really aware of anything else, the real world, really.
Yeah, and you mentioned Gary Speed, and obviously you talked about having a good experience with Reading and Wales, and being part of that togetherness there. And obviously we all know what happened with Gary Speed, fantastic player, went on to do well in management as well, with including Wales, and what happened to him. How much of an issue do you think mental health is, in terms of, if you're out for a while with an injury, or when you retire from playing and you're not quite sure what to do next? Do you think enough is being done, and how much of an issue is it with, players that are still in the game and they can't get in the first team, or they're out injured? What do you think the size of the issue is at the moment, and what do you think can be done about that?
Yeah, there's a huge issue with it. Like I said, you're kind of conditioned, and you're in the system, from the majority of us, from a young age. And when you've got the pressure of trying to perform every week, you've got, the roller coaster of not performing well, the expectations, the abuse, the pressure of, wanting to make the most of your career, earn as much money as you can, be successful, play every week. There's so many things that it's difficult, and people forget that you're human. You go home and you have your own problems. You've got your own personal problems, kids, like there's so many other issues, and people think, they look at people like Dele Alli, for example, fallen from the sky, but people will be quick to judge him, quick to tell him what he's not, what he should have, he's wasted it, but people forget he's human. He's going to have issues, and it's impossible for people to kind of take that on. So when you say, is there much to it? I didn't have a phone call. I literally got told I'd retire. I had an issue with Plymouth, getting that sorted and retiring. I didn't have one phone call to say, just checking in, are you all right? Do you need any help with the future? Kind of nothing. And I didn't expect it, because I knew what football was about. And I don't expect anything. And I think a lot of players are in the same situation when they lose something that they've been conditioned to do day in, day out for years and years and years, and they come out of it and they're like, you lose your identity a little bit, you lose your purpose. And I think that's why it's so important for people to start thinking about other things while you're playing. It's not promoted. Certainly when I was younger, it was seen as a negative thing. You should just be focusing on your football. But as soon as you leave the club, no one gives a shit. You know, as soon as you come out of football, no one gives a shit. And it's, unfortunately, that's the reality. And you see, you know, I saw Craig Bellamy come out the other day and say about his financial issues. And, you know, it's, unfortunately, it's such a circle that you look at governing bodies like the PFA and things like that. I mean, the amount of money they've got, and they're there for the players, but they're not. There's a lot that could be helped with it. And unfortunately now, as players, it takes for someone to do something or be bankrupt or go for a real mental health problem, which we all do. We struggle with. We're not doing something we've loved and dedicated our lives to. There's not the resources or understanding, or even, you know, we're men. We rarely talk about it. We keep it in. We get on with it. Whether that's a sexist comment, I don't care. I think it's true. Yeah. So it's a huge problem.
Yeah, and Simon, Johnny, before I come back to you, just want to ask Simon, tell us about, you know, what you've been doing since retiring, what you're doing now, and also, you know, how much of your kind of mentality that you applied as a player are you applying now to whatever it is that you're doing? So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, I've got basically two companies. I've created a sports brand. CBD Performance. It's like a sports nutrition brand. And I've also bringing out another brand as well. But that's something that I'm passionate about. I wanted to go into something that I'm actually passionate about and I'm in control, because unfortunately sometimes, especially in football, you can give your all and it's not in your hands sometimes. So I wanted to be able to come out of football and have something in my own control and that I'm passionate about. And luckily enough, football gave me the platform to be able to do that. But it's been difficult as well. I think the good thing about football is it's given me the resilience that I know that I can get through kind of pretty much anything. If something goes wrong in business or someone tells you I don't like it, it's rubbish, it's fine. It's no problem. It's not like playing against Millwall and getting called all this kind of stuff or you know, looking on Twitter. I still get it now. I've been retired 5 years. I still look at it and still get battered on Twitter. So it's just like, it's nowhere near as bad in terms of, you know, there's nothing to be scared of on the other side. Nothing that should hold you back.
And Johnny, over to you again now.
Yeah, no, Simon, I was just taking back because I'm big around mental health myself, and men talking, and men do need to talk. We don't talk, and there's nothing wrong with saying that. It's not sexist. It's a big problem. It's a big problem in football. It's a big problem in life, and the whole, you know, making that safe place for people to talk. I think there should be more mental health first aid training, maybe in football. You know, for the team. You know, 1 in 4 people has a mental health problem. Just because you're footballers, you're not any different to everyone else, are you?
No, the problem in football is, yeah, you're right. There's as I said, there's a lot of pressure, not just from a performance point of view, from fans' expectations, from the club's expectations, but then you've also got to go home and you've got to deal with whatever's going on at home, because people forget we've all got our issues, we've all got our problems. And yeah, sometimes the clubs can provide psychologists, but when you're in a club environment, you're always wary about what you say.
Yeah.
I've been at clubs where I've spoken to a psychologist and it's gone back to the manager and it's affected my selection on Saturday. So what chance have you got as a player to be able to open up? And that's what I say about good managers. You're able to knock on his door and you're able to just have a conversation. Someone who was great at that was Brendan Rodgers, like amazing, really good. Chris Coleman, amazing. You can just have a conversation and just be open and honest. And there's no judging here. This is a safe space, just me and you. Talk to me. I want to get the best out of you. And I think that is massive in football. And unfortunately, we just don't see it. It's not rocket science.
Yeah,
we're humans. How do you get the best out of a person? You're there. They're able to feel like they can express themselves personally and professionally.
And Simon, have you spoken to Brian McDermott about this sort of thing? Because obviously he's come out and talked about his mental health struggles. And I went to see his presentation in Henley a few weeks ago with Russell Brand that he did. His recovery from addiction and we're really pleased for Brian. He's got the role at Hibs now. And I met up with Brian recently, and he said that, because I talked to him, about some issues that I was having, and he was really, really helpful, really kind to me, and it really helped me. And one thing he said to me on this topic was that me and him are unusual in that we're being open and we're talking about it, because it's normal. You might have a perception of someone that they're okay, but that might be just because they're not talking about it. So have you had those sorts of conversations with Brian?
Yeah, do you know what? Me and Brian caught up last year, and he probably wouldn't mind me saying that, we ended certainly the Reading relationship on a real sour note. And he called me up, and he basically told me what he was going through at the time. I had no idea. And, we had a really, really good conversation. I'm really glad we had that, because it was difficult. I was going through things that I felt like I couldn't tell him. He was obviously going through things now, like that were causing so many issues, and it was difficult. And I wouldn't have understood at the time at 23, or, well, like he said, we just wouldn't have said it.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have said it, wouldn't have been able to talk about these things. And yeah, it was great. It was great listening to him and catching up and talking about things. You can't change the past. The past is what it is. As you get older, you kind of realise what's more important. And certainly for when you're stuck in football, the mindset of football is don't show weakness. Hold yourself back, hold yourself accountable. Don't show anyone that you're struggling or it's difficult or you're not in control. And I think we need to be able to remove that. But football stuck. It's run by dinosaurs. There's too many dinosaurs in the football world, and it's so difficult to have that. But I think a new era of managers, hopefully they will look at Russell at Swansea, who's brilliant. He's able to talk about that. He's put things in place to help the players be able to speak and look at other things outside of football, and it's brilliant.
Yeah, Johnny, back to you.
Yeah, I think you were saying something like, the more people that talk about their issues, I'm open about mine, have been, and it helps other people, in my world. But the more footballers that come out and speak can only help the next generations, can't it? And that filters through that it's okay to do that, isn't it? And that trust is there then, isn't it? And that's, for anyone going through a problem, is huge.
Yeah, massively. I think it's always been kind of pushed under the carpet, and you felt like you're not able to talk about it because you're going to get judged, or it's going to have a negative impact on your work, or whatever. You're going to get criticised or humiliated, or taken the piss out, or whatever.
Yeah,
I think certainly. We're conditioned to be robots.
Yeah.
Sorry, lost you for a second there, Simon.
It might be my Tiscali broadband. Yeah. So yeah, you're right. The more people that can come out and actually just be open and honest, there's not a lot of honesty in football. That's just how the industry's been. But yeah, I think the more people that are brave enough to kind of stick their head out, and I've seen Trent do it and talk about the problems, the aftercare.
Yeah,
there's been a lot more players that are willing to do this. Not while they're playing though. They wait until they're after.
Yeah.
The majority wait until after, because it does have a negative impact on your playing time or your position.
Can I ask last question for you? How was it, the Legends game? We spoke to you before last year. How was it for you being back with the lads playing and at the ground? And
oh, it's amazing. It's like when you get away from that, you miss it. It's impossible not to miss it. There's a lot of things that you don't miss, but that kind of buzz of playing, being around your mates. I said about our team, and that team was probably one of the best teams I've been part of. And we all got back in. We hadn't seen each other for years, and straight away we just clicked with the same banter, the same stuff. And that day was great. It was a good turnout from the fans as well.
Yeah,
we really enjoyed it. Seeing some old faces, obviously playing against the older guys, they struggled a little, but yeah, it was such a good day. It was such a great day, and I think it's difficult. It's difficult when you retire and you get away from it, but to have days like that, it just makes it really sweet.
And Simon, I've got a question for you. Who do you still keep in touch with in terms of players from your Reading days, and out of those players, who's the kind of the funniest characters that you're still in touch with?
I still speak to Hal, Jem, Piercy, even Gilfie. Yeah, we grew up together. We had such a good relationship. It's still the same. It's obviously difficult. We're all over the country at the minute, doing different things, and coming towards the end of. Well, it's just Piercy that's still hanging on. But yeah, he's probably the biggest character, I would say. He's just on a different planet all the time. But yeah, we're coming to the age, which is crazy to think that we're coming to the age, where we're moving on to other things, coming out of the game. And someone like Jem, I think, has got so much experience. He wants to get back in the game. He's got that experience and that hunger and desire to kind of come back and make a difference. And I think someone like him and other people, that they'd be an asset to certainly Reading or another football club. And I think football clubs especially, they don't utilise ex-players that have had the experience of success at certain football clubs, certain levels, to come back in roles. We're bringing in people making these decisions that have never been part of a team or part of a club, and it's that really, really baffles me.
And do you have a desire to get into coaching, management? There's some, obviously, Joby McAnuff, players like that, doing a lot of punditry stuff. Does any of that appeal to you? And if so, are you looking towards, heading in that direction, or are you kind of happy doing what you're doing at the moment?
Yeah, I think the coaching thing, manager things, it's not for me. I did my badges, and I just knew that wasn't going to be for me at all. I tried. I've done a bit of punditry. I don't mind it. I think when I retired, I did resent football for a little bit, so I just wanted to stay away. I think I'm getting the itch back now. So I feel like I've got enough experience and understanding to kind of come back in some capacity, whether that's as an advisor or a mentor or anything like that. I really do like the idea of being a player mentor, and just sharing the experiences, and like you said there, just having someone independent to talk to, but understands exactly what you're going through. Right. Because I think sometimes when you speak to psychologists and things like that, they don't truly understand what you're going through. They're experts in the field and they have enough experience dealing with athletes and that kind of stuff, but they don't truly understand what you're doing. So maybe that's a role, maybe as an advisor, I don't know. I think that's probably something I'd look to do in the future for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, Simon, absolute pleasure to have you back on again, and yeah, great to hear about what you're up to now, and thanks for talking to us about all the other stuff and your opinions of Reading and what they need to do next. So thanks very much.
No worries.
Thanks a lot, Simon.
Cheers,
Very
guys.
kind.
Thanks, Simon. Really appreciate that.
That's all right. No worries. No worries.